The space around the research ship Artemis was silent, empty and calm. It drifted slowly through a region of unexplored stars where no human signal had ever reached before. Captain Mara Voss stood near the wide observation window, watching the soft red light of a dying star reflect off the hull. The mission was supposed to be peaceful, to collect readings, scan unknown systems, and maybe find something worth studying. For days, the journey had been quiet. The hum of the engines was the only sound, mixed with the faint buzz of machines working behind the walls. But then the quiet broke. "Captain, I'm picking up a distress beacon," said Lieutenant Chen, his voice tight with surprise. Mara turned from the window. "A beacon? Out here?" "Yes," Chen replied. "It's very weak, but it's definitely human frequency. Looks old, maybe a century old." The crew looked at each other. 100-year-old signal meant an old ship, maybe from before humans had even reached this far. "Can you trace it?" Mara asked. Chen nodded. "Already did. It's coming from a wreck orbiting that red dwarf. The signal repeats every 20 seconds. Mara stared at the faint dots on the holo map. Something about the signal felt wrong. "All right," she said finally. "Prepare a small team. We'll check it out. Helm, bring us closer. Slow and careful." As the Artemis glided toward the old wreck, the shape of a large freighter became clear. Its hull was cracked open like something had bitten it. Dark burn marks ran across the metal. The ship looked dead, but the beacon still blinked faintly from inside. The boarding team, Mara, Chen, Dr. Elo, and 2 security officers, entered through a torn airlock. Inside, everything was cold. Flashlights cut through the dark, showing floating debris, broken crates, and strange scratches on the walls. "This doesn't look like an explosion," Elo said softly. "These marks, they look alive." "Alive?" Chen frowned. "I mean, something did this. Something with claws or teeth," the radio crackled. "Captain," came the voice from the ship. "Movement detected on your deck." "Be careful." Mara looked at the others. "Movement? From where?" Before anyone could answer, the corridor lights flickered. A sound echoed on, like metal scraping against metal, slow and deliberate. The sound came closer, step by step. The 2 security officers raised their weapons. The air felt heavy, like the ship itself was holding its breath. Out of the shadows, something appeared. It moved on 2 legs but wasn't human. Its body was tall, thin but powerful, covered in dark plates that reflected faint light. Its eyes glowed like molten amber. It had 4 arms, 2 ending in sharp claws, the other 2 more like hands. It tilted its head, studying them like a predator observing prey. Everyone froze. The creature's gaze locked onto Mara. Then, in a blur of movement too fast for the eye to follow, it was suddenly right in front of her. Before she could react, its clawed hand wrapped around her neck, firm, cold, and unshakable. "She grabbed my neck," Chen whispered, frozen in shock. Mara gasped but didn't struggle. The alien's face was inches from hers. Its breath was cold and strange, like air from a frozen world. Its voice came out as a hiss that carried both threat and curiosity. "I could rip you apart, human," it whispered, each word rough but clear. Then it paused, its bright eyes studying her face closely. "But tonight, you will listen." The crew didn't move. Mara felt her heart hammering but forced her voice to stay steady. "Then talk," she said quietly. "We're not your enemies." For a long second, the alien didn't speak. Then its claws loosened and it stepped back. Its second pair of arms lowered too. It didn't attack. It just looked tired. Dr. Elo slowly moved closer, scanning the creature with his wrist device. "She's injured," he said softly. "Internal bleeding. Probably been hurt for a long time." Mara rubbed her throat, still feeling the cold grip. "You understand us," she said to the alien. "What's your name?" The creature tilted her head slightly. "Lear," she said finally, her voice strange but clear. "My ship. Gone. My crew. Gone. You entered my nest." "We didn't mean to," Mara said carefully. "We came because of the beacon." "Beacon," Lear repeated, then hissed in frustration. "I sent it. I needed help. But not from hunters." Mara frowned. "Hunters?" Lear turned her gaze toward the dark corridor behind them. "They come. They take heat, light, and life. They do not stop." Before anyone could ask more, the Artemis's radio crackled again. "Captain, readings are spiking outside the wreck. Something big just appeared on sensors and no engine signature." Mara's stomach dropped. Evacuate, she ordered quickly.
Everyone, back to the ship, now! Lear hissed sharply.
Too late. The freighter trembled. A low hum filled the air. It felt alive, vibrating through their suits. A moment later, the lights went completely dark. Only the aliens' eyes glowed faintly in the blackness. "It is here," Lear whispered. "Who's here?" Mara asked, trying to keep her flashlight steady. "The Eater of Stars," Lear said. "It killed my ship. It feeds on power, on mines. If it finds your ship, it will feed again." The tremor grew stronger. Something massive brushed against the hull outside. The deck plates groaned. "Move," Mara shouted. Back to the airlock, they ran. The corridor twisted as debris floated around them. One of the security officers was caught by a falling beam and trapped. Lear turned back, grabbed the metal like it was soft clay, and bent it aside. The man floated free. "You saved him," Mara said, breathless. Lear's reply was quiet. "For now. If you die, I die too." They reached the airlock. The door sealed, and the shuttle detached from the wreck just as the freighter's hull caved inward like it was being crushed by invisible hands. From the cockpit, Mara saw it, a dark cloud moving through space like smoke made of shadows. Where it touched light, the light died. The Artemis's sensor screamed warnings. "What is that?" Chen whispered. "The thing that took my world," Lear said softly. "You cannot fight it. But maybe. You can run." They barely made it. The Artemis fired all thrusters, pulling away from the collapsing freighter. The shadow followed for a moment, then stopped. It seemed to study them, then drifted back into the dark. Inside the ship, no one spoke for several minutes. The crew stared at the alien sitting quietly in the corner, breathing slow and steady. Finally, Mara said, "You said it eats light. What is it?" Lear looked at her with tired eyes. "We called it the Void Serpent. It eats energy, warmth, thought. We thought we killed it long ago, but it found us again. It will find you too." Mara felt a chill. "So it's hunting." Lear nodded slowly. "Yes, but it hunts patterns. It follows signals, systems, predictable moves. If you want to live, you must be unpredictable." Chen looked at the captain. "We can shut down systems, change course, mask our signal." "Do it," Mara said quickly. "We'll make sure it can't find us." The Artemis went dark except for emergency power. The stars outside grew faint as they drifted quietly into the shadow of a nearby moon. For hours they waited. No sign of pursuit. During that silent time, Mara sat with Lear in the cargo bay. The alien was repairing a piece of armor using melted wiring. "You could have killed me," Mara said softly.
Why didn't you?
Lear didn't look up. "Because you did not attack first. You spoke, that's all?" Lear paused, then finally looked at her. "In my world, only the brave speak when they cannot win." "You spoke?" Mara smiled faintly. "Then maybe we're not so different," Lear hissed quietly, almost like a laugh. "Different enough. But maybe that will save you." They sat in silence again. The hum of the engines was gone. Only the faint ticking of cooling metal filled the room. Later, the ship's sensors detected strange static. Not the shadow returning, but something else. A trail of energy, faint but leading deeper into the system. Mara called the crew. "If that thing feeds on energy, maybe we can find where it came from. Maybe even stop it." Lear turned sharply. "You want to hunt it?" "Humans are mad." Mara met her gaze. "Maybe, but if we don't, it'll keep feeding. On us, on others." The alien's eyes narrowed. "You would fight what even my people feared?" "Yes," Mara said simply. "Because if humans run every time we're scared, we'll never stop running." Lear stared at her for a long time, then finally nodded. "Then I will help you, human." Mara extended her hand. Lear hesitated, then took it. Her grip was strong, colder than metal, but not cruel. For the first time since the encounter, the bridge felt alive again. The crew had a direction, a dangerous one, but theirs to choose. As the Artemis prepared to follow the trail into the deep unknown, Lear looked out the window at the red star fading in the distance. Her voice was low but clear. "You humans, you are small, fragile, noisy," she said. "But you do not break easily. The dark will learn that." Mara smiled faintly, turning to the crew. "Let's prove her right." The engines roared back to life. The Artemis turned toward the empty dark, its lights cutting through the silence. The shadow of the unknown waited ahead, patient and endless. But for the first time, humanity wasn't just afraid. They were ready to fight back, and somewhere deep in the dark, the thing that fed on stars stirred once more, sensing new prey that would not go quietly. Humanity was about to make the universe remember one truth. They were small, but they were not easy to kill. The Artemis moved through the dark expanse of space with caution. Its lights cut narrow beams through the void, and the engines hummed quietly, a steady rhythm to calm nerves fraying after the encounter with the shadow creature. Mara stood at the observation window, arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the faint glimmer of stars ahead. Lear hovered nearby, her gaze sharp and unwavering, scanning for any sign of the predator that had almost destroyed the freighter. "We need a plan," Mara said finally. "We can't just drift out here hoping it won't find us again." Lear clicked softly, a sound that echoed in the quiet room. "It will find you. The void serpent does not forget. It follows the patterns of living energy. It studies, waits, then strikes." Dr. Elo, sitting at a console covered in blinking lights and holographic schematics, frowned. "If it hunts patterns, then our best chance is to become unpredictable. But the question is, how unpredictable can a single ship and its crew be against something that is older than our species?" "We have to be enough," Mara said. She turned to the crew. "We're going to make it pay for every move it takes. Every life it wants, we'll force it to work for. And if it strikes, we hit back, when smart, fast, and without hesitation." Chen exhaled. "That sounds simple in theory. Executing it, that's a different story." Mara gave a small smile. "Then we learn, quickly. The first step was to understand the creature." Lear guided the crew into the research bay, pointing out traces of the serpent's energy that she had collected over decades of survival. She explained how it fed on electrical currents, heat, and even mental signals that registered on living minds. It was a predator unlike anything human science had catalogued. "Think of it as a hunter that can reach through the dark," Lear said. "It senses movement, energy, thought. If you give it predictable signals, it will follow them to the end of the universe and beyond." Mara leaned over the console, studying the energy patterns. "So we confuse it. Make it think we're somewhere we're not?" "Yes," Lear said. "But confusion alone will not be enough. We must teach it mistakes, force it into traps, and never repeat the same move twice. It will learn. It is clever. Do not underestimate it." The crew began preparing. Chen worked on recalibrating the ship's sensors to mask heat signatures. Dr. Elo rewired decoy systems so that they could mimic human life, producing false signals in multiple directions. Even the security officers participated, learning to move silently in zero gravity, their bodies acting as improvised traps to lure the predator away from the ship's vital systems. Lear trained them in new methods of movement, ways to approach the ship's outer hull, ways to throw signals that were intentionally misleading, and ways to operate without creating predictable patterns. Mara observed quietly, noting how quickly the crew adapted. The human mind, she realized, could bend in ways no other species could. For days they simulated attacks. The ship's decoys moved like shadows across holographic maps. The crew practiced evasive maneuvers in microgravity, learning to predict each other without being predictable. Lear taught them to read the faintest signals, to notice changes in temperature, vibrations, and energy. It was exhausting work but necessary. On the fourth cycle, the Artemis detected the faintest pulse of energy, something not quite like heat or radiation. Lear stiffened instantly. "It is near," she hissed. "It is testing," Mara nodded. "Then we show it what we can do." The crew prepared the ship. Decoys activated, engines purred at varying speeds, and emergency thrusters remained ready. Mara set the course toward a narrow asteroid field, a risky place but one that could act as a trap. The void serpent was fast, but it was large and required space to move. If it followed them blindly, the field would slow it. Hours passed in tense silence. Then sensors picked up something moving in the distance, a dark wave, faint but unmistakable. It was stretching across space, following them. "It's learning," Lear said, her voice sharp. "It senses the energy, tries to predict our path." Mara felt a shiver of fear, quickly replaced by determination. Then we changed the path. Full maneuver. The ship twisted, engines firing bursts of energy to mislead any sensors. The decoys scattered in multiple directions. Mara could feel the tension coil in the crew like a spring. Each movement was precise, every adjustment calculated to keep the predator guessing. The serpent hesitated as if unsure which path to follow. Then with sudden speed it struck at one of the decoys. The holographic signal dissolved, and the predator's tendril swept through the asteroid field, destroying rock and simulated signals alike. "Good," Lear said quietly. "It fell for the bait." But the creature learned fast. Another pulse moved directly toward the Artemis. Mara barked orders, and the crew executed an emergency evasive maneuver. The ship lurched, systems flashing red, but it survived. The Void Serpent slowed, studying, calculating. "They are clever," Lear said. "More clever than I expected. But we are stronger together." The hours that followed were a blur of strategy, improvisation, and careful risk. The crew learned to anticipate its strikes, while Lear predicted its moves with near-perfect accuracy. The Predator had never encountered humans like this. Small, weak by comparison, yet unafraid and unpredictable. At one point, a group of smaller cargo ships passed through the area, unaware of the danger. Mara realized they were a perfect test for the Void Serpent. If it hunted them, it would expose itself. "We use them," Mara whispered to Lear. "Not to harm them, just to lead the creature." Lear hesitated, then nodded. "We will protect them, but the path must be shown." Using the decoys and carefully timed signals, the crew guided the Predator away from the ships, forcing it to chase false trails while the real convoy slipped through the asteroid field. The Predator learned, adapted, and struck at nothing. The humans had created a maze of energy and patterns it could not predict. By the time the convoy reached safety, the Void Serpent was exhausted, recoiling into the shadows. The Artemis floated nearby, battered but functional. Mara allowed herself a moment to breathe. "You did well," Lear said quietly. "Better than most species could do. You survived because you are unpredictable, because you did not panic." Mara smiled faintly. "And because we had a teacher," Lear hissed softly, almost like a laugh. "Perhaps. But do not think this is over. The creature will return. It always returns." The crew worked through the night repairing the ship and reviewing the data. Every sensor, every movement, and every pulse was logged. Mara realized they had learned something more important than any scientific discovery. Humans could survive against forces far stronger than themselves if they learned, adapted, and worked together. As dawn approached, Mara and Lear stood near the observation window, watching the red star fade behind the horizon of distant planets. Mara felt a strange sense of calm. The Predator was still out there, but it no longer seemed invincible. "You believe we can defeat it?" Mara asked. Lear looked at her with eyes that glinted like distant stars. "Not defeat. You cannot defeat the Void Serpent in the way you think. But you can outsmart it. You can survive." "That is enough for now," Mara nodded. "Then we will survive." The days that followed were spent preparing for the next encounter. Mara's crew learned to move like shadows, think in patterns and counter-patterns, and trust each other in ways they had never needed before. Lear became more than a teacher. She was a comrade, a silent protector, and a reminder that sometimes survival required courage and cooperation above all else. Then, one evening, a new signal appeared on the sensors. A faint, irregular pulse not unlike the Void Serpent's own energy. Lear stiffened. "It has returned. It has been watching, learning. This is no test. It is ready." Mara gathered the crew. "This time we do not run. We do not hide. We fight with our minds, our tactics, and each other. Are you ready?" The crew nodded. There was fear, yes, but also determination. They had learned something invaluable. Humans may be small, fragile, and noisy, but they could be clever, unpredictable, and unyielding when survival demanded it. As the Artemis moved toward the source of the signal, Mara and Lear stood side by side on the bridge. The stars stretched infinitely around them, silent witnesses to the coming battle. Mara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility for her crew and the lives of the convoy they had saved. "You were right," she said quietly to Lear. "We are strange to this universe, but maybe that strangeness is our strength." Lear tilted her head. "You will see. Strength does not always lie in size, speed, or power. Sometimes it lies in knowing how to survive when everything else would fail." And as the dark pulse of energy drew closer, Mara knew they were about to test that strength like never before. The Artemis's lights shone bright, cutting through the emptiness. The Void Serpent was out there, patient, waiting, and hunting. But Mara, her crew, and Lear were ready. They would not be easy prey. For the first time, the Predator would meet humans who refused to be predictable, and in that refusal, humanity would make its mark on the universe. The Artemis drifted closer to the source of the strange energy pulse. Every light, every hum of the ship, carrying the weight of anticipation. The Void Serpent had returned. Its presence was not just sensed through the instruments. It pressed against the crew's minds like a shadow, cold and expectant. Mara stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the scanning display, fingers tight on the railing. Lear floated nearby, her movements silent but sharp. Her amber eyes scanned the readings, tracking the creature's tendrils of energy as they snaked through space. It has learned, she hissed softly. It understands patterns better now. You must not repeat mistakes, Mara nodded. Then we adapt. We have no choice but to outthink it. The crew prepared the ship. Decoy pulses were primed, emergency thrusters checked, and the hull reinforced. The asteroid field they had used before was too close to the main path of the energy pulse. Mara decided on a new tactic. They would lead the creature toward a deep nebula, where visibility and sensors would be limited. The Serpent relied on detecting energy and movement. The nebula's interference could work to their advantage. As they approached the edge of the nebula, the first tendrils of the Void Serpent appeared on the sensors. The crew held their breath as the shadow extended like a wave across the void, scanning, probing, testing. Chen whispered, "It's faster than last time. It's learning every move we make." Lear clicked softly. "Yes, but so can you. Remember, unpredictability is your weapon. Change, improvise, confuse it." Mara nodded. "Then let's begin." The Artemis altered its course abruptly, engines firing short bursts to create false heat signatures. Decoy drones projected multiple copies of the ship's energy footprint, scattering across the nebula. The Void Serpent reacted immediately, striking at the closest pulse. Its tendrils destroyed one drone, then another, but it was too slow to reach the real ship. "Good," Mara said quietly. "Keep it guessing." Hours passed in tense silence. The Serpent's energy waves probed repeatedly, testing for patterns. Every time it moved toward a decoy, Mara altered the course, sometimes reversing, sometimes spinning the ship, sometimes shutting down the engines completely to let it drift. Lear moved through the corridors, guiding the crew on timing, placement, and subtle changes in energy. Then, without warning, the creature struck at the ship itself. A tendril ripped through the hull near the engine room, tearing panels and sending sparks flying. The Artemis lurched violently, alarms blaring. Mara grabbed the console, her mind racing. "Damage report," she shouted. Dr. Elo's voice was tight. "Engine output reduced by 30%. Hull breach contained. Life support stable but weakening." "Then we make this work," Mara said. She turned to the crew. "Deploy the countermeasures now." The decoys fired bursts of false energy in multiple directions. The Serpent hesitated, its tendrils retracting slightly, confused by the sudden changes. Lear's guidance was precise. "Now move to the left flank. Reverse course immediately after." The ship twisted, narrowly avoiding another strike. Crew members clung to rails and consoles, their training and preparation saving them from panic. The Void Serpent recoiled into the shadows, frustrated but undeterred. It had never encountered prey like this. Small, unpredictable, willing to fight in ways it did not understand. Mara allowed herself a brief moment to breathe. They were holding their ground, but the battle was far from over. "Captain," Chen said, pointing to the sensors. "It's regrouping. I think it's planning something bigger." Mara studied the display. The Serpent's energy signatures were converging, forming a mass of tendrils that spread across the nebula like a living net. It was attempting to trap them, to limit their movement and to force them into predictable patterns. "It's creating a trap," Lear hissed. "If you stay inside, it will crush you. You must break the pattern entirely." Mara made a quick decision. "Prepare the emergency pulse. All power to the decoys. We lure it into the heart of the nebula, and then we hit it with everything we've got." The crew moved quickly. Dr. Elo rerouted power to the decoy systems, amplifying their energy signatures. Chen adjusted the engines to produce false heat readings, projecting the illusion of a larger ship. Even the security officers assisted, positioning smaller drones to move as if they were part of the crew, each creating distractions. Lear took the lead in the corridors, moving silently to ensure that every crew member understood the timing. "We have one chance," she hissed. "One synchronized move. Miss it and we lose this battle." The Artemis advanced slowly into the nebula, the dense clouds of gas and dust scattering their sensors and confusing the Void Serpent. The Predator followed cautiously, its tendrils stretching outward, testing every signal. Mara felt her pulse quicken. This was the moment they had been preparing for. "Now," she shouted. The crew executed the plan perfectly. Decoys fired in synchronized bursts, drawing the Serpent's attention. The ship spun, engines pulsing in short bursts to create false trails. Lear moved swiftly along the outer hull, her sharp claws clicking against metal as she redirected energy fields to enhance the illusion. The void serpent struck at one of the decoys and became entangled in the nebula's interference. Its massive tendrils flailed, trying to adjust to the shifting signals, but every move was met with another change from the crew. Mara could see the frustration in the creature's energy readings. It was learning, adapting. But the humans were faster, unpredictable in ways it could not anticipate. Hours stretched as the battle continued. The Artemis danced through the nebula, luring the Predator into traps, forcing it to waste energy on false signals, and always staying one step ahead. The crew's coordination, guidance from Lear, and their willingness to improvise kept them alive. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the serpent recoiled, its energy dissipating into the nebula. It had not been destroyed. Nothing that strong could be destroyed easily, but it had been forced to retreat. The Artemis floated in the misty clouds, damaged but intact. The crew exhaled collectively, relief washing over them like warm light. Mara leaned against the console, feeling the tension leave her body. "We did it," she said softly. Lear approached, her movements fluid and quiet. "You survived. That is what matters. It will return, yes, but now it knows you are not simple prey. That knowledge may buy you time." Chen wiped sweat from his brow. "I never thought I'd see a creature like that and live to tell the tale." Dr. Elo laughed softly. "And we didn't just survive. We taught it a lesson it won't forget soon." Mara smiled faintly, glancing at Lear. "We make a good team, don't we?" Lear hissed softly, a sound that might have been amusement. "Perhaps. But never forget, human in the dark is patient. Survival requires constant vigilance." The crew spent the next day repairing the ship, reinforcing the hull, and reviewing their strategy. Mara knew the battle was far from over. But they had achieved something remarkable. They had faced a force far stronger and older than themselves. And they had not just survived, and they had adapted, improvised, and triumphed in their own way. As the Artemis prepared to leave the nebula, Mara called the crew together. "We've learned something important," she said. "Humans are small, fragile, and limited, but we are clever, adaptable, and brave. That combination can survive even the most powerful threats. We've proven that tonight." The crew nodded, feeling the weight of their accomplishments. They had faced the unknown and had not faltered. Their courage, ingenuity, and cooperation had saved them and countless others in the convoy they had protected. Lear hovered nearby, observing the crew with her sharp amber eyes. "You are not like other humans I have seen," she said. "You are different. You do not break easily. That difference will carry you far." Mara felt a sense of pride and responsibility. They had survived, but the universe was vast and the Void Serpent would return. They would need to continue learning, adapting, and preparing. But for now, they had won a crucial battle. The Artemis emerged from the nebula, lights cutting through the darkness. The stars stretched endlessly around them, silent witnesses to their victory. Mara allowed herself a brief smile. Humanity had left a mark on this encounter, proving that courage, creativity, and cooperation could overcome even the most terrifying of threats. As they set course for the nearest outpost, Mara thought of the future. Humans would face many challenges in the vastness of space, some far beyond their current understanding. But if they could survive tonight, they could survive anything, and in that survival they would grow stronger, smarter, and more respected. Lear floated beside her, her gaze distant yet focused. "You may think tonight was the most dangerous challenge," she said quietly. "But it was only the beginning. The universe has many tests. You must remain vigilant, human. Your strength lies not in your size, but in your mind, your will, and your courage." The stars stretched before them, endless and mysterious. The Void Serpent had been forced to retreat, but its presence lingered in the dark spaces between the stars. Humanity had proven its worth, and the Predator had learned that they were not to be underestimated. The Artemis glided forward, its crew united, determined, and ready for whatever the universe would throw at them next. They were small, but they were not weak. They were humans, clever and brave, and the universe would remember that. As Mara looked out at the endless expanse, she realized something profound. It was not the size,